Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for having me. I am indeed Irish, and so this was a great honor. And when I first got the call and was asked to do this, I said sure without ever knowing where it was. By the end of the conversation, I did think, where is this conference? And I was told it was Dublin, and to which I said, Ohio. So it was a great surprise to find out it was actually Dublin, Ireland. So I'm representing Virgin Voyages, and it is our first foray into the cruise industry. I myself am from the cruise industry, but more about that later. It's true that all eyes are on us. It's our newest Virgin venture. And any debut cruise line into this industry, very rarely do you see new companies coming into this industry. It's definitely met with a lot of expectation and surprise, and that's no stranger to the Virgin family or the Virgin Group. Expectations are certainly going to be high. A cruise ship can easily be $1 billion investment, and trust me, we know all about that. And most cruise ships and cruise lines typically follow a mold. And our mission is to really break that mold. So in order for us to leave a mark on this industry, it's important that we actually did a little research and really understand what this industry is about. So I'd like to, for the first few minutes, just give you some understanding and context about this industry and the particular positioning it has, and then what we're doing to do things very differently. So with the industry, it has about 400 registered cruise ships in operation. And this year alone, in 2018, by the end of this year, 27 new ships will make their debut. The industry carries about, 24 million passengers. We have about 1 million employees, and it has an economic impact of about $126 billion. So certainly an industry that's doing pretty fine, and in our eyes, in the Virgin eyes, it was an industry that's really prime for disruption. And so a little bit about the Virgin Group, been around for about 40 years. Very much a people-first approach to anything that we do, and that's the telecommunication business, that's the aviation industry, music, space travel, shout out to our sister company, Virgin Atlantic, who are making great strides in that industry. But Virgin are always looking for ways to improve the customer experience. And Richard Branson, Sir Richard Branson, our founder, has very much been very clear that cruising, his desire to cruise isn't there. He would never want to cruise, but this is definitely a ship that he would actually cruise on. And one of the things, one of the design, and we very rarely impose restrictions on our designers, but one of the things that was absolutely a given was that we would have tables on board on which you can dance upon. And this is a shot from, very recently actually, from our shipyard in Genoa, Sestri. And we were celebrating the coming together of two big parts of our ship. So ships are so huge nowadays, they're actually built in parts. And this was the celebration of where those two parts actually met for the very first time. So the ship now is a whole. You can actually see the entire hull, and I have some images of that later. So when we talk about this Virgin way of doing things, I'd like to delve in a little bit deeper in that and look at what is the Virgin difference. Well, as it relates to cruise lines, first and foremost, Virgin likes to enter into an industry and pinpoint where something seems to be missing and fill that void. And so our first ship, called the Scarlet Lady, will be geared towards a crowd that you wouldn't normally see cruising. Now, are there anyone here that's ever cruised before? Oh, cool. All right. Not many of you. Good. And going into this industry, typically it's very geared towards families, kids, mom and dad, 2 kids, and grandparents, and kind of generational cruising. So a very bold step was made from the very beginning with this desire to be adults by design. So you will need to be 18 years and over to come on board with us. And that's very different. And so it's different not just for our customers or guests, or we like to call them sailors, but it's going to be very different for our crew. Our crew are used to that family vibe as well. They're used to seeing families. And so we're hoping that they'll come around to that. They will learn during our training, and that our service philosophy really evolves around the sailor experience. And everything we do is with the sailor in mind. So nothing will happen without our sailors. They are the heart and soul of every voyage. And no matter how diverse or varied you may be, there will definitely be a space for you on Virgin Voyages. And our crew are really integral to that, and we've thought of everything possible to help them to perform and provide service at the highest of levels. So how did we go about doing that? Well, first and foremost, we started with disruptive design. And so I guess I'm preaching to the choir here. You are all designers. I was a little conflicted yesterday when Alex said, hands up, if you consider yourself, a designer and part of service, and I wasn't sure what to do with my hand. So my background is not service design per se. I have spent over 10 years working on ships and over 20 years in the industry. And my role in the industry is really to enable people performance. And so this is the first time I've truly come behind the curtain as it relates to the design process in the way that I guess that you're used to it and the way that I saw yesterday. So I don't have technical mappings to show you of how we got to our design philosophy, and I'm going to speak more about what we're going to do to engineer the actual delivery of those wonderful plans around service and journey mappings. I'm going to talk about the human element of that and what we're doing, what I think is quite different. So within our disruptive design, our exteriors and our interiors were designed very differently to what you normally see out there if you're looking at cruise ships. We worked with Tom Dixon Designs of London, Roman and Williams in New York, Concrete of Amsterdam. And so our collection of designers have never worked on cruise ships, never even visited cruise ships. In fact, we were quite happy that they hadn't. They truly designed with a totally different vision in mind. So with that, we're also looking to make a difference with our sustainability initiatives and, of course, being a Virgin brand, wonderful use of technology. And all of that combined with our commitment to the crew and to the sailor experience. And these commitments really fall under our brand purpose, which is to create an epic sea change. And so a little bit more about that. We hope to take our sailors on more than just a typical cruise. It's really going to be a nautical journey unlike something they haven't really seen before. We're committing to getting things right, and that starts to listening to our sailors. So we did a lot of research, and so you'll see that the classical approach was applied in terms of we researched thoroughly. We developed personas, we did journey mapping. The thing that I find very interesting and very different here is whatever we applied to what we thought our sailors would want, we applied that same methodology when it came to our employees, which we call our crew. So that thorough process of who will be our customers, what will they want, and those speak to those expressed desires and those unexpressed desires. So we're not building a ship for everyone. We're not even building a ship for people who have cruised before. So hopefully that appeals to almost everyone here in this audience. Our research led us to some big truths, one of which is there's a perception with the cruise industry that it's really taken a mass approach to people and the experience. And this was something that really is very prohibitive for people to want to come and cruise. And so we've taken all of that and we've tried to reimagine it in terms of what will inspire people to want to go to sea. And a little bit more history about the industry. Ships have been transporting people across the Atlantic way back since the 1840s. And if anyone has any time today, there's a wonderful immigration museum just down the road. And obviously this country sent a lot of people across the ocean. But cruising as we know it really took off in the 1920s, where it wasn't so much about the necessity of having to go from the old world to the new world. It was much more for pleasure. Money was there, and it was deemed a very pleasurable thing to do, to get on board a steamer ship or a transatlantic liner and take a pleasurable route across the Atlantic. And so nowadays, it's very big business and very much about fun and entertainment. And so with our purpose to be positioned as providing this epic sea change for both our customers, our sailors, and our crew, we're also hoping that we deliver on the promise of this modern romance of sailing. So those larger cruise ships that you see out there in the world today, especially the mega ships as they're called, a few of which I worked on, they cater to up to 6,500 passengers, and there's another 2,500 crew behind the scenes making sure everything works. And we're not going toe-to-toe with that type of vessel. We're coming in at about 2,700 sailors and just over 1,000 crew. So a really nice mid-sized ship that we hope will be a very intimate experience and is predicated on this wonderful interaction between our crew and our sailor, combined with this amazing design that really allows the sea to take center stage. So take everything you know about luxury travel at sea, and that may not be very much, but can you imagine, lying on deck and having this beautiful clear view of the ocean, the wind in your hair, the salty sea spray all around you. We're hoping that we bring to you everything that you would imagine, and then some of the things you wouldn't imagine. So we're looking for a very nautical feel, and then sometimes a very naughty feel. And as it's a Virgin brand, probably very, very naughty. And so it's probably a good thing that we don't have children on board. So with all of that, how are we doing it? So we're going to make some clever use of technology. And I thought Lorna's discussion yesterday was fascinating for me, with the evolution of design. And for us, technology presents a wonderful opportunity if we leverage it right. So from the people perspective, one of the things that I know to be a huge challenge for us is that the crew that we are going to have on board, many of whom will be veterans of the industry, they will never have worked with this type of technology. They would never have leveraged this technology in the service of the sailor or the guest. So that's a huge educational piece on my part, and how are we going to ensure that these non-tech savvy crew, and I'm talking, when I say that, it's pretty much a broad generalization. Obviously, our engineering officers and our sailors are very proficient with technology. It's how we maneuver a ship. It's how we get from A to B. I'm talking throughout the ranks. So from behind the scenes, those people that perhaps work in the laundry, our chefs, to those who are actually front and center and in service of the guests. So we want to make the experience a very comfortable experience. Technology will not dominate. It will not take over the role of the crew. In fact, we're hoping it enhances the crew members' service and experience. And we've come at it with very much that people-first mentality. So technology is simple as we've already started some of our recruiting processes. And when we go to these recruitment fairs, we find everyone's coming to us with their paper resume and many copies of their paper resume, and we don't accept paper. We give them a link, a little card with a little link, and that's their first engagement with us is helping them understand how we're different. It's also helping to push to the front our commitment to sustainability. And so already in our recruiting process, we're seeing, but I have a resume, I want to give you my resume, and we're engaging with them in a very different way that's already piquing their interest. A lot of the technology, obviously, I can't speak of yet, but I will absolutely share some insider information with you as we work through. So some of the spaces that I can show you, I've got about 4 public spaces that I'd like to show you that will help you understand our tack on being disruptive as it relates to design. And the first we're seeing is Richard's Rooftop. So this is an exclusive space for our sailors who book our suite cabins. It is beautifully appointed and has enough space so that everyone gets a sunbed and they can relax, get their sun time in. It's a beautiful outdoor space. For everyone else, we have the dock, and the dock is all our on-deck open spaces, very much, again, with the view to showcasing the beauty of the ocean. You could spend all day up there if you so wish to indulge, enjoying the sunshine. And as we work through these spaces, you see that they all have their own personality. And for the crew working in these areas, they too will need to lend their personality to the spaces. They will learn to dial up or dial down their personalities based on the space that they have been assigned to work in. And this is something new for us. Typically, the industry likes to conform. They like to have a very specific model of service that they use. Working at sea, it's a very hierarchical structure. So there is a captain, there's a chief engineer, there's a hotel director, and typically crew members all look up. The captain is very much the rule of law, if you will. So we're hoping to make that structure a little flatter, and we're also encouraging people, our crew, to really be themselves within this environment, because their personality is what helps to bring those spaces alive. So in these areas, you see it's very casual, it's very laid back. Crew aren't going to necessarily dominate in this area. There are other venues where we really want their big, bold personalities to come out and to engage with the sailors in a way that perhaps they weren't expecting. So fitness and relaxation is huge for us. Obviously, it's a vacation at sea. So we really want to have people do a lot of relaxing, detoxing, and this concept of detox and retox. And so when we talk about this, it's very much have fun. And then the detox part, or the retox part, is really how you have a little me time and you get ready to do it all over again. And so within that, there's a lot of space devoted to health and wellness. We have the athletic club, and this spas at sea are really usually quite beautiful. However, again, very scripted, if you will. And service in general, like I said before, tends to be very scripted. If you can imagine having 2,500 crew on a typical ship, there has to be a lot of structure, there has to be a lot of order, and there is a lot of consistency, to the point, sometimes, that we may seem a little robotic. You know, guest comes in, you look them in the eye at 10 paces, you say good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on the time of day. And we're not doing that. So we're not scripting. So if you were to walk into one of our, into the athletic club perhaps, you may be greeted as if you were on a hike in Runyon Canyon. Are there any Californians here? Oh, a little, hey, fantastic, wonderful. So, excuse me, I'm going into my Valley Girl moment right now, but it could be that you're out on a Saturday at Runyon Canyon and, somebody just says something such as, oh my God, I love your shoes, they're so cute. And so that's the kind of spirit on board where the first thing you say as a crew member to a guest may not be the standard greeting. In fact, there may be no greeting at all. We want it to be natural and we want it to be authentic. And so that could be your very first touch point with Susie, our fitness instructor. And at some point within the conversation, she'll let you know that, hey, I'm Susie, I'm the fitness instructor, what are you up to today? And she's there to help out, she's there to provide a service if it's so desired, or she's there to just leave our guests, our sailors, to themselves. And so, enough talking, let me show you a little bit about, I have a very short little clip that will help set the scene.
Kiss me, we're on fire, babe. Love me, take me to outer space. Kiss me, we're on fire.
Okay, anyone fancy coming on a cruise now? Yeah. So, wonderful, thank you, very good. So, have you ever seen a cruise ship? Yeah, they all tend to be predominantly, what color? Yes. So, a very obvious difference here. So, obviously the red livery of a Virgin branded company. And then gray, so a very, very unusual choice. Anyone seen any of those mega yachts or heard about some of those wonderful mega yachts out in the industry today? Yeah, great. So very much more the yacht look. So already to the eye, very different. And so with that, we're really focused on sustainability, and we're having to educate our crew on what that sustainability looks like. So coming into the industry, we've said no plastic, which is huge. So no plastic straws, no plastic water bottles, no plastic to-go coffee cups. We've worked with a few companies, Scanship out of Norway. They specialize in recycling wastewater. And then we've worked with Klimion, which is a Swedish company, which are helping us to actually reuse the fumes from the engine to create electricity. Those are all firsts. And so there's a huge part to educate our crew, our officers, our engineering officers. And this will be the first time that the industry will have that, whereby we're really trying to work in a sustainable way. And that's a huge plus for anyone coming from the industry. So the first time I walked up a gangway, it was 1991, which doesn't really seem all that long ago, but in the cruise industry, it is. So back in those days, we were really not necessarily good citizens of the universe. We've learned a lot, we made a lot of mistakes, and we've really learned to be a lot more protective of the seas in which we sail upon. So I'm particularly proud of those initiatives. Also, to give you a little context, back in 1991, there were hardly any females in the industry. Men could go to sea when they were 16, and if women wanted to go to sea, they had to be at least 25. They also had to be gifted in secretarial skills and wonderful linguists, none of which I was. So part of servicing this sea change for us is our focus and our attention to creating solutions for inequalities that we find in the industry. So remember how I said we surveyed our sailors? We also surveyed our crew. And when I say our crew, the industry's crew. And boy, did they speak. We conducted surveys and focus groups. We solicited lots of feedback, and at Virgin, we also hired a lot of people like me, so people from the industry. And it was fascinating, listening to what everybody wanted. And we're hoping to really address a lot of the desires that have been put forward in order to make the crew experience one that will really be different, and one that will be a very motivating and inspirational experience, so that they in turn will pass this on to our sailors. So the name, our Scarlet Lady, really Virgin Voyages chose that with two things in mind. It is the name of one of the very first flights or airplanes within the Virgin Atlantic family. And it's also signifying our commitment to female leadership. And so this is a great shot. This was also taken in the yard. So we are actually currently building our ship. And this is our head designer, lead designer, Dee Cooper. And she's very much, in our corporate office, we very much see this wonderful balance and this wonderful female leadership. And we're bringing that into the industry. And again, to help you understand why is that so different and why is that so worthy of note. The industry itself, if we think of the cruise industry and we think of the larger, broader shipping industry, which covers offshore drilling, oil and gas, chemical, tanker, transportation, the global industry has about 3% of females represented. And we want to change that. So unbeknownst to me and the association with this conference and Cork, so shout out to Cork. Anyone here from Cork this morning? Woohoo! I actually, on the way here, stopped off in Cork. So it was thrilling yesterday to hear the association with Cork. And so Cork has a famous maritime college. It actually has the National Maritime Institute of Ireland situated in Cork. And within the cruise industry, it has a wonderful reputation. In my past life, we've taken lots of graduates, we've taken lots of students, and typically they're students or cadets, as we call them. They're being groomed for captaincies or engineering roles. So I stopped off there in the search for some candidates for our Scarlet Squad. And Scarlet Squad is our female empowerment program. It's designed to get female leadership into the industry at all levels, but especially in the marine and technical side of our business. So just again, to make sure you know what that means, a marine officer is typically an officer that stands on the bridge and navigates, so determines how the ship gets from A to B, plots a course, makes sure we don't hit any rocks as we leave the harbor, and make sure we get safely to our next harbor. A technical engineer is typically the person that determines what fuel we need to have, how that fuel is burned, how we store it, and basically mans the engines and, again, helps us to get from A to B. So during my visit to Cork, or actually just before my visit to Cork, we found out that the college, the program manager, is actually Ireland's first female master mariner. So wonderful, wonderful association that we're hoping to work with, and we're hoping to find the future talent of future female talent that will come and perhaps captain our ships or run our engines. So we're definitely looking to be different in how we recruit and who we recruit, and we're definitely hoping to encourage females to take a more active role in all facets of the industry, but especially in leadership. And thank you. Oh, wow. Super. Thank you. Great shout out. And our president and CEO, Tom McAlpin, actually is very passionate about this too, and he really wanted to let everyone know that our future crew, that Virgin Voyages will create an onboard environment that is really fair and inclusive, where everyone has the opportunity to reach their full potential. And we feel that that type of environment will help us deliver this promise of exceptional service. And now the industry itself is really known for having great service. And just to put that in context, I live in Florida. The corporate office is based in Florida, and best wishes to anyone out there that's currently suffering as a result of that terrible, terrible hurricane. Florida is an industry that is based, that really makes its living from hospitality. It's the home of the cruise industry. But there's also, I find, if anyone ever has the opportunity to come and visit, there's also a little exhaustion with regards to tourists. You know, it's kind of that, sometimes it feels like it's that necessary evil. And so if you're used to living here in Ireland or maybe England, you know, the tipping culture isn't as robust perhaps as it is in the United States. So be fair warned, if you don't leave your 20-25% gratuity or tip, as they call it in Florida, they'll come running after you and want to know why. So service levels on ships are super good, and we're trying to be very different with that. And the way we think we're going to achieve it is creating this inclusive environment. And also the type of person that we're going to seek. We're looking for responsible rebels. So remember that hierarchical structure I talked about. When I was first privy to the responsible rebel crew member that we're going after, I thought, okay, I'm not quite sure how this works. This seems to be a little oxymoron for me, responsible and a rebel. Those two things kind of don't go together. And certainly I know when our Vice President of Marine Operations, who's an ex-captain, heard the word rebel, there was a moment of, are we sure we want a ship full of rebels? That really doesn't bode well for our industry. So here's what we're looking for, and here's the difference we think that we're going to bring to the table. We're looking for people that are unafraid to be themselves. We feel with the right training, with the right smart use of technology, that we will actually lend ourselves to create this environment that's very empowering. And with empowerment comes confidence, confidence to be ourselves. And so the industry guideline is very clean cut. You know, if you have a tattoo, you hide your tattoo. We're saying bring your tattoos, bring your purple hair, bring your crazy haircuts. You don't have to have your hair in a bun. You know, we're just not forcing you to hide who you are. We want you to be who you are. And so again, with this concept of not having scripts, providing you with the right type of training, creating processes that support you and that are going to lend themselves to you being very authentic and intuitive with the sailor, we feel that we'll deliver on this service. So again, it's not to say that we haven't gone through the process of research, creating personas, creating wonderful journey maps. And again, I laughed when I saw Laura's. I even took a picture of the screen yesterday when I saw one of those journey maps, because ours kind of looked like that too. And I once had a lecturer at college that said, you know, theory is beautiful. And for us, it's how do we bring that to life? So we've done all of those things, and we're just getting ready to start on a global recruitment drive. We care so much about the type of individual that comes to work for us, and this is absolutely insider information. It's the first time we've spoken publicly of this, so shh. Our recruiting teams, every team is composed of one individual whose sole purpose within the recruitment process and the interview process is to determine if that person that we are recruiting is actually a cultural fit. And even beyond that, will that person that we're recruiting, will they actually add to our culture? So we have our set of core values, or as we like to call them, creeds. We're assessing, Are they speaking the language of the creeds? We're using, of course, the tried and tested behavioral-based interviews, and depending on the positions we're recruiting, we're also using the specifics of trade testing. If you're an engineer, you're going to be put into a simulator and you're going to be put through a series of scenarios to determine what is your stress levels and how will you interact with the team. That's a given, that's an industry standard. What isn't an industry standard is this mindfulness around, are you a cultural add to our team? So remember I said we had about 1,000, we're hoping to recruit at least 1,000 plus crew members. When I say it's a global search, it really is a global search. I have a really tough job. I will be in Singapore, I'll be in Hong Kong, I'll be in the Philippines, I'll be in Indonesia. Hopefully I'll be back here. So our experts will be with us, assessing, is this the right engineer, is this the right deck officer, and then our cultural person to ensure that coming in to keep our culture strong, because we do believe that is a key foundation, that person will only add to us and not subtract. So it really is the right fit. Very, very different approach to what you currently see. We're also hoping to not overtrain. So there are regulatory training that's required, that's a given with the industry. We're hoping then, once we've gotten through that phase, that the leaders of each particular area, they themselves, we call them our Virgin Voyages superheroes, they become the trainers, if you will. So we're looking at buddy programs, which, I'm sure we've often been recipients of or participants of buddy programs. What I often find is they've probably been a little misapplied. And sometimes as a buddy, we chose the person who has been there the longest, perhaps, or the person we think is the most seasoned, but may not have any of the skills that are required to truly onboard and help a new person develop within the organization. So to also put a little more context around life at sea, it's a 24/7 operation. So as a crew member coming to the industry, you will work 70 hours a week. There are no days off. You will be on board for 4 to 6 months. And that sounds a little horrifying. It's a true way of life. It isn't just a job. So we really want these passionate, committed, and exciting and excited for us people to come and work for us. A little test that we run in the office, we're ramping up really quickly in our corporate office. It's a known fact that Richard Branson is not fond of ties. Does anyone know what Richard Branson does when he encounters a tie? He cuts it, yeah. And every Virgin office actually has a tie wall where you see all these crazy collages of just torn ties. So when in our office, when we have people come to interview, if they show up in a suit and tie, we don't cut, but we do ask them to take it off, because it's, for us, it showcases perhaps either a lack of research on their part, maybe a lack of desire on their part, or just simply a lack of understanding. But to be a cultural fit or a cultural addition, these things are important, because we're not about the suit and ties. We're not about conforming. Our uniforms will be fantastic. Unfortunately, I don't really have any to show you. We do think they will be the kind of uniforms you won't want to take off. So it is this wonderful intersection of the people and the process. And for our sailors, we're hoping that technology will be leveraged behind the scenes so that the crew member can be truly in the moment with our sailor. To the point that they will be intuitive, they'll almost read your mind. They will remember who you are, they'll start to seek your preferences, and they'll seek to sort of surprise and delight you with some of this wondrous things that we're doing around the ship that really remains a secret right up until the moment. So I think I have one more little video for you. So if you're feeling young at heart, if you're looking for a good time, if you don't like buffets, then please consider a cruise or a voyage on the Scarlet Lady. We are debuting in 2020, early 2020. Everything I've talked to you about is what we've done from sort of a planning phase, and then a little bit about the execution through the right crew member with the similar values to us, to our creeds. So it's all conceptual right now. And I would love to see you all in maybe 2 years' time and let you know how we fared. We certainly feel we've done a lot of work around the planning, and it sounds very much in sync with some of the things we learned yesterday. We really think the difference is truly going to be our people and the carefulness in which we choose our crew members to come and work for us, and really execute on all those wonderful journey maps and guest experiences that we've spent the last several years putting together. So thank you so much. Wish us well, and enjoy the rest of your conference.